Rum, 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 rum. Tractor Cito is rumbling along, Trevin. Another huge week for him and the Titans getting a win on Monday Night Football, baby, over the Bills to get to 4-2 and join the top teams in the AFC as we go towards Week 7. What'd you think of that Monday night game?
Very impressive win for your Titans. That was a pretty good game. I really didn't see that outcome coming, but they went down the wire and handled the Bills. On a personal note, it's not fun to go against Derrick Henry when he's having one of these games in fantasy football because that was sitting pretty good. I thought I had Josh Allen and Diggs to and against the guy I was going against. The score was pretty close, and he only had Henry. I thought I was pretty solid, and man, it is terrible to watch him when you're going against him in fantasy. Just rumble through everybody and run for 75-yard touchdowns. It just doesn't seem like there's anything anybody can do, and it's a bad feeling.
20 carries, 143 yards, 3 touchdowns. He is the king. That last touchdown getting the win for the Titans, or putting the Titans ahead, and the defense actually stepping up for the win there and a little bit of a surprise, making a stop inside the 10-yard line. On fourth down, Josh Allen slipping obviously helped a little bit with that. But what impressed me most was their pass defense in this game was a lot better than I thought it was. Like, Josh Allen still threw for 353 yards, but they actually got some stops in this game and got a clutch one when they really needed it. So kudos to them.
Yep. The Titans are looking a lot better than I thought they were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And it's just back to Tractor Cito. He's the tallest running back in the league, and he's the heaviest running back in the league. And it's still, safeties can't get an angle on him. He just outruns everybody. I think he set the record for the season so far and fastest ball carrier. And the safeties come up to plug a hole, and he's just gone. It's just way too late for them to turn around him or get a better angle on it. He's just out of there.
Was it Micah Hyde who was that one who had to make that tackle 20 yard on the 20-yard line? Can you imagine being in that position? You're like the 6 foot, 190, 200 pound at most safety.
I think he's listed 245. Oh, the safety. Sorry. Yeah. I thought you were talking about, yeah.
And you got to tackle 6'3", 247 pound Derrick Henry running full head of steam downhill towards you 20 yards downfield.
I don't know how you could do it. I don't know how you'd even attempt it. When there's somebody kind of grabbing onto his shoulder pads or something, he's slowed down a little bit. When he's got that full head of steam, it doesn't seem possible.
It is insane that you could be that big and that fast. I mean, like you mentioned, the fastest measured speed in the NFL so far this season is a guy that's built like a linebacker.
Yeah.
Or bigger.
I mean, some of the other guys you think that were hard to tackle, like Gronk, but he was never coming downhill at a safety like that full. He's usually turning around to catch a pass, and he's just so big you can't tackle him. Henry's running 22 miles an hour straight ahead at you. It's crazy to watch. I can't believe he's still doing it like this.
It's wild. I mean, so he's on pace for over 2,000 yards. He'd be on pace for 2,088 yards if we had a 16-game season. With a 17-game season, he's actually on pace for 2,219 yards. So he's well on his way to becoming the first player to run for 2,000 yards in a season 2 years in a row. And that's despite having only 58 rushing yards in that opening game against the Cardinals and struggling quite a bit in the first half against Seattle before he really turned it on and finished with that 182 yards in that game, which brings us to our stat of the week, Trevin. Henry now has 11 touchdowns of 50 yards or longer, tying former Titans running back Chris Johnson for fourth most in NFL history. Did you look at this list? Do you know who the three ahead of him are?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know it was going to be a surprise. I already looked at it.
No, you're good. So Adrian Peterson had 16, Barry Sanders had 15, and Jim Brown had 12. Those are the only three players with more. So, yeah, I mean, insane for a guy this big to have so many long touchdown runs, Trevin.
I had another stat for you. There's only been there's one other running back that has led the league in rushing for 3 consecutive years for yards and touchdowns. Derrick Henry is on pace to do it this year. It would be his third year for both categories. Do you know who the other one is?
Probably not Peterson.
Nope. 3 years in a row of leading the NFL in yards and touchdowns.
Jamal Lewis?
Nope.
Jim Brown?
It is Jim Brown.
There you
Only other guy to do it. So it's pretty crazy this day and age where the game is so shifted towards passing is the more efficient way to do it with the rules and also how good quarterbacks are now. And it's just like a blast from the past that the Titans, they're able to come back into games and win games by just giving the ball to this gigantic guy who just runs in a straight line from where he gets the ball to the end zone. Like he just does. There's not a lot of hopping back and forth going on or cuts going on. Of course, he stiff arms anybody that gets in the way, but it's mostly get the ball and run until you hit the end zone.
Yeah,
I thought
and
your crazy stat you're going to say though is his receptions this year. He's already at 16 receptions for the season. His career high was last year with 19 receptions. So that's always been his downfall in PPR leagues, that he just doesn't get the catches. And this year he's doing it, and shows by how far ahead he is from the running back 2 in PPR leagues.
yeah, you want to go ahead and share that?
Yeah, so Derrick Henry is in PPR, 170 points on the year. Austin Eckler's in second with 128 points on the year. So Austin Eckler averages just about 21 points a game so far this year. If he played 2 more games than Derrick Henry, he'd still be behind Derrick Henry for points so far this season. So he's really lapping the field here.
So Henry's averaging what, 30?
Yeah, 28 and a half.
28 and a half. Unreal and yeah, I mean, adding the receiving is a huge deal for fantasy, especially. I mean, it helps the Titans too, but in fantasy, you add those 16 catches, 138 yards on top of what he's doing in the running game. And I mean, potentially could be looking at the best fantasy season of all time for a running back.
It's on pace. He's already had 10 rushing touchdowns. What's he going to finish with? 30? What's Tomlinson's record? I think Tomlinson has the record. I think it's the high 20s, I believe.
I'll look that up for you quick, since clearly you didn't do it.
Well, I didn't. It's just where the conversation went. We're just
LaDainian Tomlinson had 28 in 2006. So
he's just right on track.
Yeah, that record is in danger, certainly. Yeah, it was a fun game to watch. The Titans, you on board with them as contenders now?
It's so tough for me to say it when they're just so different than every other team. Nobody else can have success doing this, but Bills were one of the top teams. They had one of the best offenses, and their defenses looked pretty good, and the Titans handled them. So I got to say yes, I guess. They're definitely the best team in the AFC South. But
well, that's not saying much.
No.
But you're damn right they
do.
They're
at the top 4, top 5 teams in the AFC.
Yeah, so you look at the AFC, you got the Ravens on top, and then you got at 5-1, and then you got the Bills, the Bengals, the Titans, the Chargers, and the Raiders at 4-2. Big win for your Raiders this week.
You know, I wasn't even going to say too much to ruin the show or stop the showdown, but it was that Broncos, they look really, really bad. But it was cool to see the Raiders get a win with all the stuff going on with Gruden leaving, and team still seems to be competent. So it's exciting. The year might not be totally over yet.
Yeah, it was a big one for the Titans, especially because they host the Chiefs this week in what should be another really interesting game. And then they go to Indianapolis and then to LA for their next 2 games. So they have a chance to deliver potentially a knockout blow for the Colts that week, but who knows what happens this week against the Chiefs. But the thing that did really hurt them going forward is their secondary was already really bad, and they lost rookie cornerback Caleb Farley, who was their first-round pick this year, to a torn ACL in this game. So that pass defense probably be even worse going forward, and that's really unfortunate. And I think that's probably one of the things that'll keep them from being – I don't think they'll make the AFC Championship still, honestly, and I think that'll probably be one of the main reasons why. It's just this pass defense is so terrible, and losing him is only going to make it worse.
Yeah. Did they already play the Colts once so far this year? They're going to play their second game with them already?
Yep, so they played in week 3, and then they're going to play again in week 8. So they'll get both of those out of the way in the first half of the season.
Huh.
And the Colts are sitting there at 2-4, so if you lose to the Titans again, you're looking at potentially, being down 3 games or more and having the tiebreaker going to Tennessee as well on that head-to-head. But And that will potentially have some fantasy trickle down effect because the Colts will be pretty unlikely to play Carson Wentz enough to get to that threshold that would boost that pick up into a first round pick, Trevin.
Yeah.
So late in the year, that could become a factor as well. The Colts play the 49ers this week, so they're staring at potentially going into that game with the Titans at 2-5. All right, enough Titans, Trevin. Let's hop into the main event.
Let's do it.
For tonight's main event, we have a couple of rounds here. We're getting into the heart of fantasy season here, Trevin. We're almost to the halfway point in most leagues, which
That's sad.
most regular seasons are 14 weeks this year with the expanded schedule. So after week 7, we'll be halfway through, and a lot of teams are starting to figure out whether they are contenders or pretenders. So as we get here closer to the trade deadline in the middle of the season, we're going to talk about strategy, especially in Dynasty, as we move forward. And then in round 2, we'll talk a little bit about kind of our personal most exciting and most disappointing players so far this season. So Trevin, week 7 coming up. You're in a couple Dynasty leagues. What's going through your head right now?
It's tough. We won't talk. I won't get into my specific teams yet, but it's making that decision is hard. It's a lot easier to say you should know if you're contending or not at this point, but of course you have injuries, so it's not all set in stone. You can say, well, I'm not very good, but I've got some injuries, or I have been pretty good, but I've been in good injury luck so far. So you got to make a decision now. You don't want to be stuck in that middle, and now's the time.
Yeah, this is really where the chaos starts. We have bye Mageddon this week.
Man.
So there were 4 teams on bye last week, but we got 6 teams this week, and they are the Bills, the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Steelers, the Chargers, and the Jaguars. So you got a lot of key fantasy contributors going on bye this week, and some teams, including my own, are probably going to be lucky to field a full starting lineup in some leagues. So I think that this is where you really start to see the depth come through on your fantasy, or lack thereof, on your fantasy roster. And if you're sitting there at 500, or you're 3-3 or 4-2 or 2-4, and you drop these next couple of games, I think that that's when you probably have to really consider selling. Or if you are able to make it through here, this is a chance to go buy a big key player. And we saw a big trade in one of our own leagues today, Trevin, a guy who started out pretty poorly this season sold Dalvin Cook for Deshaun Watson, and there were some other pieces in the deal as well. But I know this was a deal that you liked for both sides, I think.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. The guy who sold Cook, he's had some injury, bad luck this year, and didn't seem to be going. I think he's had 1 win so far this year, so there wasn't a lot going for him this year. I think Cook, the longer you wait, the less his value is going to be. He's 26 now, so going into the next year, if you're not contending again, you're not going to get as much back as you want. And with Watson, there is a lot of risk to him, but if he does come back, he's one of the top quarterbacks, and this guy needs a quarterback. So I thought it was a risk worth taking for both teams. The guy who traded away Watson takes a lot of stones to go all in and go for Cook right now and be short on that quarterback side going in the future, but he's going for it, so I commend him.
Yeah, I think especially for the guy with Cook, and you mentioned, he's 1-5 right now at this point in the season. Makes a lot of sense. Dalvin Cook's played in 4 of their 6 games so far, so he's already missed a couple, and he only had 9 carries in one of the games. So selling him while he's healthy is probably a key deal, especially before your trade deadline, where you can get maximum value when he is healthy, as opposed to trying to selling him, if he does get nicked up again. So I like that a lot. I thought it was really interesting, the Deshaun Watson thing. It's fascinating to see his value in Superflex right now, and how people are viewing him. But I like that deal. We talked about this in the offseason. I think my buy or my sell or whatever was Dalvin Cook if you're not a contender. And it's a good, example of how you can get pretty solid value in return for him in a dynasty league and change the future of your franchise potentially. So I like the deal for both sides, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Watson going forward. There were a lot of rumors floating around today.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be like most of the rumors centered on him going to the Dolphins as early as this week, but who knows what happens with his legal proceedings after that. So might be on a new team this week, but might not play for who knows when.
Yeah, keep an eye on that one for sure. Trevin, any other players you're looking at as good buy or sell candidates for contenders or people who are selling?
For buys, if I was in a position where I just don't think it's going to happen for me this year, I think I'd be looking at some of the rookies that aren't quite performing yet. Because people get impatient if they wanted some rookies to hit right away and it's just not working out and they think they're going to be contenders this year, it might be the time to get low on them. So I was kind of looking at maybe Terrence Marshall, who I think has a lot of talent there. He started actually the year pretty good. The first week he played quite a bit and had some catches, but he hasn't produced a whole lot since then. So him and Javonte Williams, I will probably take over more of the backfield as the year goes on, but still kind of behind Melvin Gordon right now. And also all rookie quarterbacks. If there's anybody that's kind of contending now, but their rookie quarterback isn't producing, maybe now is the time to kind of view them as if you can't get a first round pick from the guy, they still have first round value, and maybe you can go that ways instead of getting just picks.
Yeah. Can't think of one of those rookie quarterbacks that's not probably more affordable now than they were, 6
Yeah,
weeks
for
ago
sure.
before the season started.
Yep.
I like those targets a lot. And another one I always like to look at if I'm selling is, an injured player who will not give me any points this year, would not help me win games that I don't want to win to give me a better draft pick, but should be back next year and be a key contributor. So you're looking at people like J.K. Dobbins or Travis Etienne or potentially Cam Akers if you're a believer that he comes back. Marlon Mack has actually looked pretty decent so far this season when he's got an opportunity. So those are all players to keep in the back of your mind as potential targets. And of course, there's always draft picks as well. Yeah, so if I'm buying, though, some players I'm targeting in addition to Dalvin Cook would be players like Zeke or Aaron Jones, who are kind of in that same position where they're, 26, 27, still producing at an elite level. Zeke is running back 4, Aaron Jones running back 6, but probably are at the peak of their powers and in a good spot to help me win this year, but have a lot of question marks going forward as they start to trend down with their age. And then also with Aaron Jones, you have the potential that Aaron Rodgers is gone after this season and a lot of unknowns there. So those would be some targets I'd be looking at on the flip side as a buyer, Trevin.
How about some older veterans that are underperforming so far this year, Levi? I know we've talked about him before, but it hasn't really gotten better since we talked about it. Allen Robinson, who continues to underperform for Chicago. Is that somebody you'd be looking at maybe if you're contending this year and you can get a lower price now and maybe you have a wide receiver you can fill in later on?
It's worth a shot. I don't know how much of a difference maker he's going to be this season. Like, that's where I'm just hesitant with him, is I don't know how much better it really gets this year.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more optimistic for him next year than I am this year.
So you'd maybe be looking at him actually if you are a seller this year. Maybe that's a piece you get back and can contribute next year instead of looking at somebody that can contribute this year.
Yeah, certainly as part of a package, I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah. What about another guy that's disappointed a little bit? T. Higgins, who had a great year last year and just doesn't losing a lot of target share to Jamar Chase. I know I'm kind of throwing names that you haven't looked at as much so far for this episode, but just kind of going off who guys I'm seeing.
Yeah, friend of the show, Dave Wright at FF_Spaceman on Twitter had a pretty good thread on T. Higgins that I retweeted earlier. I think it was today. So go check that out if you haven't. He had a lot of good advanced metrics in there that I won't steal his thunder on from here. But basically, it seems like, T. Higgins kind of dealt with that injury a little bit, and I think he started off pretty solid to the year, and then he dealt with that injury, and I think that's affected his performance as he starts to come back from that. And obviously, Jamar Chase has maximized his opportunity in Higgins' absence, but I think there's plenty of work in this offense for both of them to be really good fantasy receivers. So I'm still a T. Higgins believer, and I think if you can get him at a discount, however slight it may be right now, then that would be a good target as well. Great young receiver who had a solid rookie year.
Yeah. So he has actually been pretty similar throughout his 4 games he played. He did get hurt in the middle of the season, but the difference kind of is he had a touchdown each of the first 2 games. He had 4 catches, 6 catches, 5 catches, 3 catches in the 4 games that he played.
Yep.
Anybody else you're thinking of off the top of your head that's kind of disappointed so far this year that you might target?
I mean, if you're
Get a lower
still
price than at the beginning of the year.
if you're still holding out hope for Brandon Ayuk, he's definitely attainable now. I don't
True.
know if I'm in that camp, but those people are probably out there.
Man, that's weird. It just he was a guy I wanted at the beginning of the year. It just seemed like he was so ready for keep his momentum going from his rookie year, and they just kind of in the doghouse maybe, and just maybe he isn't as good as we all thought last year.
Yeah. Darrell Henderson would be another one where he's going to help you a lot this year, and he's probably a little cheaper than some of the other options that we've talked about. He's been very productive so far this year, but he's, has a lot of. He's probably not going to produce like this again next year. So if Akers does come back, so you'd probably be able to get him a lot cheaper. But he's running back 13 so far, and I don't see any reason that wouldn't continue throughout the rest of the season. He missed some time and came back and got the full workload again right away. A lot of people, myself included, were interested to see if Sonny Michel would eat into that, but it just hasn't happened. So he may be one, if you're looking for some depth during bye weeks to go out and get, who won't cost you as much as some of the other options. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I like it. He's impressed me. I didn't think he was very good before the year started, so I would have been wrong on that. He's looked pretty good, and he's getting a full workload there. Anybody you have for sells right now, Levi?
Probably the two I mentioned, Aaron Jones and Zeke, if you're not contending, would be the main ones. But, I've
got one for you.
I had both of the one I was going to throw out there was Mike Davis, and then of course you have Cordarrelle Patterson. If you're not contending, definitely sell both of them if you can. But you're not going to get a lot. But
Patterson is who I was going to say. I think running back, it's been hit hard with injuries this year. So if you can find a guy that's really struggling with running back depth who's trying to contend this year, you might be able to send Patterson his way and get a little bit extra for him. I'd expect him to keep some pretty good stats this year. He's actually running back 4 on his. He has one bye, but for average this year. So it seems like he has a role there this year with the Falcons. It's just that he's already 30 years old. I don't expect it to go too many more years after this.
Or any. It's hard to see him repeating this. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, even top 10 going forward would be kind of a surprise to me, but he's done it so far.
Yeah. Deebo Samuel is another one that I would consider just because I don't know if I'm a full-on believer, and if you find someone out there who is, you may be able to get a pretty nice premium for him. He's wide receiver 8 so far, and he has a lot of encouraging metrics, especially his target share is 36%, which is number 2 among receivers, but I just don't know how sustainable that is, especially if they do bring in Trey Lance and that offense evolves a little bit. He may take a step back. So I love what I've seen from him. I might be trying to sell high if I can.
Man, it's tough for me to do that on a guy so young, even if I'm not contending this year. He's only 25, and he looks like he might be the wide receiver 1 there for a team that has a good offense. That'd be a tougher one for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally fair. It's just someone.
I don't think this pace is going to keep going, but that'd be a guy I'd like to have to keep building around on my team for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's fair. Anybody else you're selling?
No, that's I might sell Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold because you and Brent, when you had him on the show, really put the stink on them. So I don't expect that to get any better.
Yeah.
Can I tell you their stats since you and Brent talked about how much improvement's been going on with those two?
Do I have a choice? And to be clear, me and Brent, I think both agreed that what they were doing was not sustainable. But sure, hit us with
No. You both said they're the best 2 quarterbacks in the league, and you should go get them right now before the price gets even higher, is how you phrased it, I think.
Yep, Empire State of Mind, baby.
So, at the time, Sam Darnold was leading the league in rushing touchdowns and was looking pretty good, and Daniel Jones seemed to be quite a good.
We were adamant that Sam Darnold would continue to rush for a touchdown every game.
Yes, you were. And since then, there's been 3 games. They've thrown a combined 10 interceptions, and that was another thing that you guys said was, I know you didn't say like they're not going to go back to their turnover-prone ways, but you both said how much they've been improved their turnover proneness, and so far since then they've had 10 interceptions total and 3 fumbles total. So good job, boys. You really slowed those two down.
Yeah.
And Daniel Jones also had a terrible concussion that looked like he might not play for the rest of the year when it happened, but he is back. So I'm blaming that on you too, also.
We'll take all the blame. Yeah, I think we gave a pretty balanced review of those two, and I was hoping that there was sticky improvement there, but I was not real. I definitely wasn't banking on it. And as someone who happens to be relying on one of those players, I know you were hoping it was real as well.
I still got faith in Jones. I do think it's not like he was just going crazy the first couple weeks of the season. He had a couple 20-point games, but since the concussion, it just hasn't been good, and I'm blaming it on the concussion.
Okay.
There's nothing you can do about it.
We'll roll with that. Anybody else you're trading away?
No, that's all I got.
All right. Let's move on to round 2. I'll let you tee this one up.
Yeah, so round 2, I know that about the least interesting thing we can talk about is our own fantasy football teams, but I thought it might be kind of fun to do it on the show and have a little more emotion attached to these guys. So to Levi, I was wanting to know how your personal teams are doing so far this year. Did you have a good feel going into the year? And also give me some guys that you're excited about that's on your team that you weren't kind of expecting, and some of the disappointing guys on your team. On different teams.
Yeah.
I know you got more than one team.
Yeah, I think the biggest so it's going about like I expected. The teams that I thought would be good have been good, and the ones that weren't. So but the most fun thing is still Kyler Murray. He's one of the top quarterbacks again this season. He looks like an MVP candidate. The Cardinals are 6-0, last undefeated team in the NFL. And they play the Texans this week, so that's likely to continue, as is Kyler Murray's incredible performance. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's that offense, even without Cliff Kingsbury this week, didn't miss a beat. So
might have been better without him.
People are saying. Just anything you want to see a quarterback do, he's capable of it, whether it's running, passing, or anything in between. So, Kyler Murray has been a ton of fun to watch this season, Trevin.
How many times do you have him? How many different teams do you have Kyler Murray?
Just the 2 in the leagues we're in together. So you're welcome.
Oh, good. Yeah, great. Anybody else you're excited you have on your teams and is outperforming your thoughts before the year started?
DJ Moore was looking like a pleasant surprise to start this season, but he's really slowed down the last couple weeks, and that goes back to what you mentioned as far as Sam Darnold's recent performance. He was, he's still running back or wide receiver 9 on the year, so he's not been terrible, but these last couple weeks he's had 9 points and 11 points. So Sam Darnold needs to get back to getting DJ Moore the ball in space and letting him do his thing. And what really has me nervous is they have the coach there now talking about potentially trying to establish the run more and limiting Sam Darnold's opportunities to throw. And that really has me nervous about what that means for DJ Moore going forward. But he showed us he's capable of being the stud wide receiver I think a lot of us thought he was. And hopefully, he finds a way to sustain some of that production, even if this offense does change a little bit.
Yeah. How about any guys you're disappointed with so far on any of your teams?
Ryan Tannehill has been a huge disappointment, both real life and in fantasy. Quarterback 19 on the year. The Titans, have been incredibly efficient with Arthur Smith over the past couple of years as offensive coordinator. And I don't know whether it was him leaving that's causing this or if it's just Tannehill's progressing a little bit, but he's been incredible the last couple of years, and this year he's just been kind of suspect at best. So I don't know, he hasn't been awful, but he's taken a clear step back from where he was, and that's been really disappointing.
Yeah.
And then the other one I had on my list was just Amari Cooper. He started off the season. He was one of my bold predictions. I predicted him to finish as top 5 wide receiver. He's currently wide receiver 21, so not terrible. But he started off the year incredibly hot. That first game against Tampa Bay, 16 targets, 13 receptions, 2 touchdowns, 139 receiving yards, 39 fantasy points, number 1 receiver week 1. And he's had some injuries since then that have slowed him down a little bit. He had the hamstring strain. So that's not great. And then he had like a 5.4 point week, a 5.6 point week, a couple of 15 point weeks, and a 10 point week most recently. So he hasn't been awful, but he just hasn't, that first week, and we've subsequently learned that Tampa's pass defense sucks.
Yeah.
So that might have been part of it.
At the time, we thought it was good.
Yeah. So, and CD Lamb continues to emerge and look really good. So that's probably a factor as well here, but he just hasn't been he doesn't have any other games with over 10 targets. His highest other than that first game is 8. So that's been the most disappointing thing to me, is just I thought he would be kind of a target hog in this offense, and he's only getting about 20% target share.
Yeah.
All right. What about you? Who are your surprises and disappointments?
Overall, my teams are pretty close to what I expected. I am happy. I talked about my redraft strategy going into this year is getting one of those top rushing quarterbacks early in all my. I just have 2 redraft teams, but and using that strategy, and it's worked pretty good. I'm doing pretty well in the redraft leagues with I got Kyler Murray in one and Josh Allen in the other one, and so that's been nice. As far as my dynasty teams, I was very happy about having Daniel Jones, who looked to kind of turn a corner at the end of the year before you guys talked about him. He was a guy that I didn't think I'd be able to depend on going forward. But at the beginning of this year, it looked like he was at least going to be somebody I could count on for the next couple of years in my dynasty team. And he's really switched back since then. So that hasn't been as fun, but it was cool for a little while.
Fool's gold, I think we call that.
No, he'll be back. We got to trust. We got to have faith.
Out of a job next year. You heard it here first.
Other guys, Austin Eckler, it was one of my bold predictions. He'd finish as a top 3 running back, and so far he's doing it. And he's running back 2 right now and looks very dynamic. The Chargers offense looks really good. He's getting plenty of receptions and also rushing yards more than I kind of thought he would. So he's doing very well on that great Chargers offense. So I'm happy to have him.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about him is just how much rushing volume he is getting. I mean, he's got 73 attempts so far through 6 games, and he's never had more than 132. So he's on pace to just smash that. And he's got 356 rushing yards, and he's never had more than 557. So he's getting the workhorse treatment, Trevin. And if he can stay healthy, he was going to smash all of his career highs in rushing.
Yeah, and still getting receptions. It's not the volume you'd get in the years past, but it's definitely buoying that PPR.
And he's got 4 rushing touchdowns, which is already a career high. So, yeah, incredible start.
Guys, the most disappointed guy I have is A.J. Brown. I know he's had some injury stuff, but going into the year before they had Julio, I just thought he was going to be this volume king when he's been so efficient on less volume in the past. I thought if he just increased that volume to that 11, 12 targets a game you see from the wide receiver, the big dogs, and I thought he'd really go crazy. And Julio limited his target shares at the beginning, I think, but he still hasn't performed. I know he's had a little bit of injuries, but he had his knee cleaned up before the season. I thought, well, now he's good to go. And he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. I think Chipotle is probably suing him right now for food poisoning from Chipotle, but hopefully he can get it together and get healthy. And because he did decent, he had 7 receptions on Monday night with 91 yards, but I was hoping for big things from him this year.
Yeah, I think that his ceiling's still out there, and we saw it in that second half on Monday. I mean, he didn't have anything at the first half, and he finished the game with 7 catches for 91 yards. And I think, Trevin, he's doing okay to start the year too. He had 8 and 9 targets. He just wasn't turning those into receptions like you would expect. He only had 4 receptions in the first game and 3 in the second game. So, I think hopefully as that connection with Tannehill gets rebuilt or reestablished, then he can turn some more of those into catches, improve that efficiency to be what we've come to see from him. And I was encouraged by what I saw from him on Monday night against Buffalo in that second half. And he looked fully healthy. So if he can get past this food poisoning bout, then we should be in good shape going forward. So it's been disappointing so far, but I think there's, reasonable explanations, and I think there's cause for optimism going forward.
Yep. Like we said it before, there's nothing I could really get to trade AJ Brown ever, so that ain't happening. But it's just a guy that I thought would be doing a lot better than he is so far. Hopefully he turns it around. On the Homer side, Henry Ruggs, I can't say enough good things about him. His improvement he's shown this year, and he's wide receiver 31. So got him as a buy low a couple places, and it's been fun to watch some success from him.
He's been better than I thought he would be. I'll give you that.
Come on, he gets up there and makes some contended catches that are just cool to watch.
He does. He's just had, you're always just banking on him getting a long touchdown play for fantasy for him to be, startable on a given week, and those are kind of tough to predict. So I think as an NFL player, he's a valuable asset for the Raiders. As a fantasy asset, I'm still struggling a little bit with exactly how to evaluate him.
He's kind of doing it though. Now the 6 games they've played, he's had a catch longer than 48 yards in 3 of them. So this is kind of what he was at Alabama. We don't have to talk about Ruggs very long, but it's not like he was a volume monster. It's just that he'd catch 3 or 4 catches a game, and one of them would be for 50 yards.
Yeah, but my problem is just he has 2 weeks inside the top 15, and then the next best finish he's had the other 4 is wide receiver 34.
Listen, I said this was Homer Corner. I'm happy to see the improvement. It's fun to have him on my team for these big weeks.
I agree. I was ready to leave him for dead and give you crap all year long, and I haven't been able to do that, which has been disappointing. But I'll give him props for becoming a viable NFL and potentially fantasy receiver. So well done, Henry.
Thank you. Would you say he's the best Henry from Alabama?
No.
Oh, come on. He's right there with Derek.
Maybe if he was 6'3" and 245 pounds, we would, and still ran like he does, we could talk.
So what do you think on your own fantasy teams? Are you being as successful as you thought you'd be? Are you kind of pissed off or anything like that? What's your overall
vibe? Like I said,
it's about
what I expected. I'm 3-0 against you, which certainly helps. I mean, those are easy wins.
Yeah, you had one lucky week.
3 lucky weeks, apparently.
Well, the one league, you got lucky 1 week. You know what I'm talking about. Your team hasn't got close to scoring that many again.
Once is nothing, twice the coincidence, 3 times the trend, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a long season. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. We're not even halfway through the year yet, so there's a lot of games left to be played, and a lot of things can happen. So good luck the rest of the way, everybody. Hopefully your season's going how you expected or better, and if not, hopefully you can take some of our buys and sells we mentioned earlier and put yourself in a position to win longer term if it's a dynasty league.
Unless your name is Levi, I hope all your players blow out their knees.
That's just mean.
Good luck to everybody else, though.
All right, Trevin. Well, you should take that back because I got Henry Ruggs in the league now, so.
Trade him. You want to trade him. You don't even like him.
All right. Pick the click competition. Last week, none of us got a point. Brent had Hunter Renfrow, who had 6.6 points. You had Mecole Hardman, who got 9.8. And I had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who got 9.6. So Brent continues to have a 4-1 lead over you and me. And of course, in this, as always, we're going to try to pick someone from the main slate on Sunday who will score 15 or more points on DraftKings scoring and cost $5,000 or less. And if it's 4,100 to 5,000, you get 1 point. 3,100 to 4,000, you get 2 points, and $3,000 or less DraftKings salary gets you 3 points. So, Trevin, who you got this week?
This week, I'm going right at that line, the $5,000 limit. I'm going J.D. McKissick, who has went over this threshold of 15 points 3 times of his 6 games. Last week, he had 19 points against the Chiefs. He did get some volume last week, and he's always receiving. But looks like Gibson might be, if he does play, he's playing injured with sounds like a shin fracture. And he might not play at all. So J.D. McKissick might be in line to be the number one back this week and not just the change of pace guy. So I think he can cross that 15 points again and get me a point.
You're going with the coward pick at $5,000.
I'm trying to get on the board here. I mean, I got 1 point, but got to chase down Brent. Yeah.
I am going with Amon-Ra St. Brown again this week, Trevin. So last week he had 7 targets.
It worked so good last week.
Last week he had 7 targets, which was about what we expected since he had 8 the previous 2. He had 5 catches for 26 yards, and I think he had 2-point conversion, which is the other 2 points. But he's 4,200 this week, or he's 4,100 this week, excuse me. So he's still $100 cheaper than last week. Wish he was 4,000 so I could get that extra point, but we'll settle for this. They have a pretty solid matchup this week against the Rams, who are only 21st against receivers in fantasy so far this season. Obviously, the Lions are going to be passing the ball a lot. St. Brown continues to be a main target there. And I think, his problem is he hasn't scored a touchdown yet this season. So if he can just lock in one of those babies, we'll be looking at 15 points and a point for me. Brent went with Zach Ertz, the newest Cardinal, who will be catching balls from my boy Kyler Murray. So nice pick, Brent. They play Houston, as I mentioned this week. Zach Ertz is 3,900 on DraftKings, so it'd be good for 2 points for Brent. Houston is 32nd against tight ends in fantasy so far this season. So solid pick from Brent, and it'd be interesting to see how Ertz does there, Trevin.
Yeah, Max Williams actually did pretty well for him before he got hurt, who was kind of a no-name there, but had some big games for the Cardinals. So if he can fill right into that Max Williams spot, then he can be getting some big weeks right away.
Yep. Best of luck to Julie Ertz's husband on his new chapter in his career.
Yep.
All right, Trevin. Question of the week. You came up with this dumb question, so I'll let you read it.
Dumb. I'll set it up first. Did you watch the Tennessee versus Ole Miss game last week at Tennessee?
I did not get a chance to, but I heard about it and saw some video.
Yeah. So anybody that didn't watch, they towards the end of the game, Tennessee got stopped on a 4th down that they thought should have been a first down. The fans thought anyway. So there's only a minute left in the game, and just started raining trash onto the field. They're throwing they sell beer there apparently, because just empty beer bottles, not beer bottles, beer cans, water bottles. Somebody hit a Lane Kiffin with a golf ball. So of course Lane Kiffin was back in Tennessee also, which raises the temperature of everybody. And it actually went on for about a half hour. Just the whole field was just full of trash. The cheerleaders are going off the field because they're getting hit with stuff. The band's going off the field. They eventually kicked the whole student section out of the game, and they didn't play for a half hour. They're just wondering what they can do because nobody wanted to just stand on the sideline while they're getting hit with who knows what. They showed a mustard bottle on the field, but the best theory on that one is somebody probably snuck in alcohol in a mustard bottle to avoid metal detectors. But anyway, just trash all over the field. So quite a scene. One of the crazier parts about it was they actually weren't out of the game yet. They still had all 3 timeouts and did make Ole Miss punt it back to them and had a chance to go win the game. So it's not like the game was just over. They're throwing trash. There's still game left, so they couldn't just call a game and send everybody home. Wait till everybody cooled down and started the game back over. But that gets to my question, Levi. At a live sporting event, what do you think the largest object is you should be able to throw at the field? Like a tissue paper, paper towel, empty bag of chips, full bag of chips.
First of all,
empty water bottle. If somehow you got to show your disapproval, we can both agree on that.
The answer is nothing. You should never throw anything on the field. I think that's obvious. And the second point I would make is you can't judge it based solely on size, because, like I was just going to say, batteries are a very common thing. I think that gets thrown.
Yeah, they got some hard angles on them too.
Yeah, they're not very big, with that. Getting hit in the head with one of those puppies or eye or wherever would hurt really bad. So I don't know if you can go just on size, but the correct answer is don't be an idiot and throw crap on the field.
Baseball. No, you got to show your disapproval some way. So what do you got to pick an
object?
You
have a voice for that, Trevin.
No, with your actions, with things that can hurt people.
I'm not throwing anything.
Come on, a piece of trash. What do you got for? The Huskers just blew another big game. What are you doing?
Crying in my beer.
I'm throwing a goddamn car battery at Scott Frost. I'm lugging a car battery in there.
You got a hell of an arm. I don't know where you're sitting, but to get that puppy to the field.
I think I can find a couple volunteers to help me. Who's ever around me.
Shot in the stands to get that thing down there.
Yeah. That's what I think. So I think it's more based on situation and how angry you are. If it's just kind of a non-conference loss, it isn't a huge deal. Somebody you should have lost to anyway, maybe an empty water bottle. But if Scott Frost has tanked your program for 4 years, you really need to show that you're angry and throw something big.
Like a car battery.
Yeah. About like the guy that threw a golf ball. If you carry a golf ball into the game, you're ready to throw it. There's only one reason for you to walk into the game with it.
You could probably have the same effect as a car battery and save a boatload of money by just using a cinder block instead, if that's the route you're going.
That might raise some red flags if I'm walking in with a cinder block. I think I can
But
sneak
the
in with a car battery.
one.
Yeah. I can hide a car battery in my boot.
Roughly the same size and weight, but you could conceal the car battery better, I guess.
I got jumpstart something inside.
Neither one would set. Well, the car battery might set off the metal detector, though. The cinder block, you wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah, tough. It's just tough to come up with an excuse for carrying a cinder block. Yeah, and I think I'm smooth enough to get a car battery in. Empty Valentino's pizza box at Memorial Stadium. You wouldn't throw that?
No, I wouldn't throw anything.
You're no fun.
Like, I feel like
Money.
Popcorn's like the only justifiable thing that you could.
There you go. See, we got you to throw something, some popcorn.
I wouldn't do it, but I could at least you know you're not going to hurt anybody, and it's still
box of popcorn,
just annoying.
Or the individual popcorn.
No, whatever they sell at that stadium, I guess.
Yeah, but would you take the popcorn out, or just throw the whole box of popcorn?
I think you gotta dump it for maximum effect, don't you?
Yeah. There we go. We got you to throw something.
I will never do it, but theoretically.
I'm going to have to find another volunteer to help me with the battery.
Yeah, it won't be me. Well, didn't that happen in Colorado when Nebraska played them too, or they emptied out the whole student section because they're throwing crap on the field?
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty sure. Fun times in college football. All right, Trevin, you want to do a quick beer check before we get out of here?
Yeah. So go ahead.
I got New Glarus, which I believe is in Wisconsin. Yep, only in Wisconsin.
I've never seen that.
Shelly's dad brought it back for me. I think they make Spotted Cow, but he brought back some other stuff. This one's totally naked.
Oh,
yeah,
quite a thing to get from your father-in-law.
Yeah. Let's see. What kind is this? It's I don't even know. Pure and crisp. This is a beer with nothing to hide. Wisconsin's two-row barley malt ensures a mellow and smooth body. We imported noble hop varieties from Germany and the Czech Republic to ensure a fine, mature aroma with no coarse bitterness.
Wow. Got a kind of a cool label.
Yeah, no naked people on it for listeners at home. That's really good. I'll go 8.7 on that one. That's nice, summer, crisp, easy drinker.
Very nice. The only naked women you got in your room there is that poster on the wall behind you for all the listeners.
Yeah, that's me.
So tonight, my father-in-law, they went to Estes Park and brought back some beers from Estes Park Brewing there. This is a Strawberry Falls. It's a strawberry wheat ale.
You love your fruity drinks.
I got my tie-dye fencing company cup again.
Yep. Fencing.
If anybody in Lincoln or Omaha needs a fence, go to E4 Fence Company.
And by fence, you mean fencing like the Olympics, as we established last week?
Yep. That's a good beer.
With swords.
I like it. 8.1.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good beer week.
It is a good beer week.
Hey, and big beer news. My wife got me the beer advent calendar this year from Costco.
Nice.
So I'm going to be going down the German beer route like you were last year and trying to pronounce all those names and drinking all these random beers.
Man, maybe I got to do it too, and we can be drinking them
Do it
together.
together.
Yeah.
Nice. She got the wine one too, so I told her she has to drink a bottle of wine every night for the whole month.
It's just a full bottle in each door.
I think it is like 25
Really?
bottles in there. She hasn't opened it yet, but I assume it would be. I don't know. We'll see.
I thought it was one of those tasting, the smaller, like the ones that are like a full cup.
It could be. I don't know. Yeah, I like to think it's just a bottle of wine she's gonna have to drink every night.
Maybe we'll get them both too, but my wife can't drink for the first couple weeks of December, most likely, and I'll just have to be drunk every night.
2 bottles of wine for her every night after that first couple weeks is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
It's gonna make it tough to nurse, but
I can help her with that, I think. I don't know how it all works yet. We haven't been to all the classes, but
yeah, there's one for that, I'm sure. Yeah, I like to think it's like a full bottle of wine, and the thing was like $100 for the 24 or whatever wines that are in there. So like $4 or $5 for a bottle of wine, and you drink 24 of those. I'm sure there's some real good ones in there.
Yeah. It was like $60 for the beer one, I think, something like that last year when I got it.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, which isn't crazy for 25 beers or whatever it is.
Yep.
They're big ones. Last year they were anyway. They're all tall bush here.
Sweet. Can't wait. All right. Well, thanks for being part of the Fantasy Players Club, everybody. We'll have a new episode for you next week that'll live stream on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Until then, on behalf of Trevin, the Baby Mooner Cremosta, this is Levi, the Heartbreak Kid Valentine, wishing you good luck in Week 7.
See ya.
Coach O down in the bayou.
I can't get enough of this Coach O stuff. I know there's not like new news coming out, but I love it. It's it's the best.
Yeah, you wanted to see the pictures of these ladies Coach O's been bringing around. So what'd you think when I sent them to you?
That was just hilarious. I just love the whole thing overall that he...
That's not what I meant, and you know it.
One of the funnier parts to me is like that he got the divorce immediately when he won the championship. So it's not like it's anything like quasi illegal or like uncomfortable to talk about. Like
immoral.
It seems like he tried to do it for what he's doing. It seems like he tried to do it the right way. That he won the championship. He's like, okay, divorce immediately. It's time for me to really start chasing women. I've worked my whole life to get to this point or something. And then that's all he cared about.
I haven't read into it that much. Was the divorce in the works before the championship and just coincided, or was it like...
Not that from what I've seen, and I think that Athletic Story actually said, like, after the national championship, he just spent the evening with his wife, and they, like, comfortably went to bed together or something.
Like, somebody gave him a thing of Popeye's chicken or something on the way back. I thought that was weird they included that in the Athletic Story. I do remember reading that now.
Yeah. So it does seem like they're like happily married at the time. Like I don't know any more details besides that, but he was like, all right, divorce now. It's time for me to just chase women. I'm 60 years old. I've worked my whole life to get to this point, and it's time to throw it all away.
Yeah. So he divorced his wife, got the fat contract extension.
Yep.
So he got all that money post-divorce. Savvy move by Coach O. Didn't have to split that. I mean, I'm sure he had decent money already from just... He's been a coach at bigger schools where the assistants make quite a bit nowadays. So she probably is fine, but she ain't getting the national championship coach extension money. I don't know what they owe him now. Isn't it like 30 or 40 million or something?
I think the buyout was 17 million going forward, but he has had 2 years already on this contract, so the overall contract was probably 30-ish million.
Yeah. So she's doing fine, but she ain't got 30 mil. And he's just out there.
It seems like any chance he got to talk to a woman or try to kiss a woman, it was game on. Like he's just talking to random girls at gas stations and stuff.
You got to share that anecdote for people who may not have heard yet.
So yeah, the one story that is probably the reason that came out, he was at a gas station in was filling up his car or whatever, and there's a woman filling up her car, and she happened to be wearing workout clothes, and he made a comment of, "You must work out," and she's like, "Yeah," and he said, "Maybe we work out together sometime," and she replied that she's pregnant and married, and he said, "I don't see how any of that matters," and she happens to be the wife of a higher up at LSU, and that probably is why that story came out and why a lot of this happened. But to be doing that, it doesn't seem like that would be the first time that happened. That's what it seems like that's probably a pattern of just hitting on everybody he sees.
You know what the most effective form of birth control is, don't you?
No.
Abstinence. You know what's second? When the girl's pregnant already. Coach O is... you don't have to worry about that if she's already pregnant. That was his theory, I think, there.
But then he's just bringing women around the practice facility and the training facility, the athletic facility all the time. It sounds like just kind of showing off the whole place because he's the king of the place. Just different women, and then if the women had kids, he'd throw them on the practice field and just let them run drills with the players. Like the players are getting ready to play an SEC schedule. You know, you got Auburn on Saturday, and you got some 8-year-old in front of you in the lineup for these different practice drills.
I like to think
about Coach O's trying to sleep with his mom. I can't imagine being the player.
I like to think about Keyshawn Butte, standing there, all American receiver, just waiting for his rep and practice.
Yeah, you gotta let little Jimmy go before you or whatever, because Coach O's trying to bang his mom.
Coach O probably got it on so much in the LSU athletic facilities.
Oh yeah. And then the other funny thing is, like, Coach O has never been an offensive or defensive. Like, he doesn't come up with the game plans, the schemes for those. It's like specific stuff. He just hires the right guys, and then.
Well, and he does have a background as like a defensive line coach, but I mean, there's probably only so much you need to know to coach a position specific like that.
Yeah. So that was his whole thing. Like, I'll make sure I get the right guys on both sides and let them do the work, and we'll find the right guys and pay the right guys to keep them there. And after he won the national championship, of course, coordinators leave at that point and go to bigger roles. So he needed to hire defensive coordinators. And all he did was ask Pete Carroll, one of his best friends, who should I hire? And he said, you should look into Bo Pelini. And he just hired him without interviewing him, without vetting him, without looking at how he's done at Youngstown State at the time. He just said, here you go. I could care less. I got mine, the championship and my extension, whatever. I'm not going to work on this any harder. I got more tail to chase.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah. Now he's got a lot of free time, and he still never has to buy a beer in Louisiana again. So he can just be the king of Louisiana.
Oh man. Everybody still loves him there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. You can't take away that season. Maybe one of the best college seasons ever. So he's still he'll always have that.
And just being from there, like, and just his personality, I think, is probably pretty engaging for people from there. And yeah, I'm sure if he goes down Bourbon Street or anywhere in Baton Rouge, everybody be more than happy to hang out with Coach O. Which, it's more than, I don't think anybody's doing that for Gene Chizik in Auburn, but
I don't think so either.
It is wild just how fast he got fired.
Mm-hmm. What would you like to get into with Coach O? If you guys are going to spend the night on the town?
I think, I would like to be in the posse with Coach O, although it's going out, and like Coach O is probably either buying the drinks himself for everybody or getting them for free. So that'd be great. But then I think I'd like to stand across the room from Coach O and just watch him go to work. I don't think I'd want to be too close to that whole situation.
Yeah, I think you probably have the right frame of mind. I think that would be just to walk with his group down Bourbon Street. I'm sure you're just getting everybody would love you. I'm not just talking about the women thing or anything. Like, you just to be around Coach O, he'd be magnetic, I'm sure, walking any street in New Orleans. But yeah, I'd also not want to be too close to the whole situation.
Yeah, and can you imagine trying to understand Coach O when he's had a couple? Like, you can barely understand him when he's dead stone cold sober. I can imagine when he's drunk and slurring a little bit what he sounds like.
Yeah, asking if you want to work out with him.
Maybe that should have been his defense. Like, I didn't say that. She just misunderstood my accent.
Yeah, please don't do any more Coach O accent work.
How was that? Would you rate it?
It's better than I expected, but it's still not good.
Coach O.
Yep.
So you got to give it a try, and then we can end this thing.
Alligator.
That's pretty good. It's a fun one, isn't it? You want to try some more now, don't you?
No, I think I'm good. Who's the next LSU coach? It's one of the top jobs in the nation, most likely.
Well, I sent you that thing that said Lane Kiffin's the betting favorite, which would be
awesome.
awesome.
Man.
Entertainment value would be through the roof.
Oh, boy. It wouldn't get much better than that from an outsider perspective.
Yeah, he'd still get to play Mike Leach every year, right? But they wouldn't have the Egg Bowl anymore. But so that would be a little disappointing. But seeing him on basically even footing with Saban would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
From a talent standpoint, at least.
Here's something I've been thinking about a lot. How does Saban keep motivated? Like, this is way off topic from the Coach O thing, but we kind of see it with Coach O 1-1. He's like, fuck it. Like, we did it. Let's celebrate forever.
Set for life, baby.
Yeah. And Saban just year after year it takes working 80 hours a week, going on recruiting trips to God knows where to keep the pipeline going.
I think those guys are just wired different. Yeah. It's like, I saw a quote from Tom Brady recently, or a clip where they asked him kind of about that, and I think it might have been on his return to Foxborough. They had a kind of a clip or a video that somebody put together, and one of the quotes in there was somebody asked him like what motivates him or whatever, and he said, most people get to that point where they win a Super Bowl or a national championship and they're like, this is awesome, and he gets there and he's like, well, there's got to be more than this. And so that's what keeps him going. Is just like he gets there and like everybody else is just so satisfied that they accomplished that goal, and he's just like, cool, what's next?
It's kind of depressing.
Yeah,
there's got to be more than this. There's really not. Like, you're gonna keep stacking up trophies, but you did it, man. There's not like you're gonna be going down in the history of best all time, but there's not really more than that. I don't, there's not you're not into another league of this is a better NFL league. Go conquer that now.
But I think it's probably,
you
move from your goals winning a Super Bowl to trying to do it again, and then you do it again, and it's like, well, can I be the best of all time? And that's probably what's kept him going for the last 15 years or whatever.
Ooh, crazy.
Yeah.
Would you, different. If you were a coach, do you think you'd be more Coach O or Saban?
I'd try to be more fun than Saban. Saban doesn't seem like he's fun at all.
That's part of it, though.
I think. But I used to think like, back in that 5-6 year stretch where Clemson and Alabama were basically equal, like they'd each won a couple championships and they were both in it every year. I was like, I'm not a huge Deebo guy, but Deebo showed that you could do it a different way and it could be fun, and like you didn't have to be just a grumpy a-hole. And now Dabo's kind of turned into a grumpy a-hole.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't bode well for your theory.
Yeah. So, but then you have like Andy Reid. Like Andy Reid is not a Bill Belichick or a Nick Saban, and he obviously hasn't won, multiple Super Bowls, but he's probably the next best coach besides Belichick.
The other side of that is his story was always that he couldn't win the big one, and then he did win it once, but he might just have the one, so he might fall in the.
But that's the thing, is like you're a break here or there away from winning another one for him. Like I don't think it's because he's not as good of a coach. I think it's just it hasn't worked out for him the same way as it has for Belichick. So I don't know. Make me Andy Reid. Just give me a cheeseburger after the game and happy-go-lucky.
That wasn't the question. It was between Coach O and Saban.
Oh, I'd definitely be more. I'd be more likely to be like Coach O, but I think that probably some personality differences would not. I wouldn't be all the way to the Coach O side of the spectrum. I'd like to think I'd retain my marriage and my family after winning a national championship at least.
That's the same thing I was gonna say. Like I know myself well enough that I'd definitely be the Coach O side of that. Like I did it. I'm the king of Louisiana. I still love my wife, and I'm just gonna reap the what I did here for the rest of my life now. Like,
well,
me and my wife will have a great life, and I'm the king of Louisiana.
The crazy thing is, there's a lot of room between those two. Like, he probably could have put in half as much effort as he had before, and the program would have sold itself. And if he had put in the effort to hire, really good coordinators and assistants and stuff,
he could keep me the motivator and the recruiter.
Yeah, and he wouldn't have had to work as hard, but they could still be a perennial top 10 team. And he beats Saban one out of every 3 or 4 years and wins the SEC and goes to the playoff, and that would probably be enough to keep that job forever.
Nope. He'd rather do nothing.
Yep. Wild times for Coach O.
Yep.
More to come, I'm sure.
I hope so.
You think he gets another job, or you think he just
I don't know why he
down
would.
There and...
Any job, it usually, I don't know as his contract is, but usually any job offsets what you're already getting paid on your buyout. So it's not like he gets more money to do it. And if he's already not caring at all about his head coaching job, and I don't know why he'd take another job where he doesn't get more money and to actually work, where now he can just not work and keep getting all the money.
I hadn't thought about the offsets. I don't know what his contract says about that, but yeah, if that's
how they usually are.
But get a job.
Yeah,
because he can just stay in Louisiana and live the dream.
Yeah, my only thing I could see him doing is if a school was like, "Can you work halftime for us and just be our recruiter?" Like go into all these guys, go into all their houses and just sell our program, because I don't see how a school would trust him to stay the course and to have a lot of responsibilities at this point.
Yeah. There's Louisiana University, formerly Louisiana Lafayette. Maybe he could stay there and coach for them, I guess. It'll be interesting to see what he does.
Yep.
All right. See y'all next week.
See ya.